Hey, I'm Chris from Manglers Marine Supply, North Carolina. We're going to go through the instructions on how to mount a trolling motor on the front of a boat. First step, you're going to have to get your quick release bracket and mount it on the trolling motor. When you go to mount that, you're going to have 4 screws on both sides of the Minn Kotas. There's 2 there, and then you're going to have 2 more right here. Right there behind the wire. Go ahead and pop them out. When you take this one off, this side will not go all the way. It won't come off because it's stuck on the wire. So always remember, don't lose these. Then you have your other side. This one will come all the way. When you take a quick release bracket, you got 2 different sides. You got one side with the longer end, closer. The one with the smaller gap on the front goes towards the front of the trolling motor, and they give you all your hardware. And you have your catch right here. This mounts onto the trolling motor so it holds the plate and everything into place. When you mount these, you want to keep in mind on what side you're going to mount the trolling motor. We got step 1 finished with your bracket and everything put back together. Next step is to mount it up on, or place it up here to figure out exactly where you need it at. When you come up here, you got to go. Make sure you're not blocking a lot of the seating area. And since this boat's a 200, it's going to block a little bit of the seating area, so you have to mount it the best possible way. If you have an anchor locker, always make sure your anchor locker still clears and everything is still accessible. Next, right here on this, where this groove is, you want to make sure that groove clears the rub rail and everything of the boat, because the shaft right there comes down and it sets in right here. Me personally, I usually take a pencil because it's straight. Make sure I'm clearing. You can use a level, whatever you want to use. And after you have that mounted or set where you need it at, take a pencil and mark the outside of the bracket. Also, in the box that your quick release bracket comes in, there's a template. You have to cut the back side of the box out. Because there's your template. Me, I have my own, I already have it cut out that I use for all of them. Then you come back up here, and where you just marked out your spot, you line up your ends with your template, and you just mark the inside the template for your inside of your bracket that actually mounts to the boat to hold your trolling motor down. All right, next thing, you have your bracket that mounts to the boat. After you've done marked everything out, you set that on there where you need it at. Most of the time, these front 2 holes won't mount on the boat itself, so you have to add your own holes. mark on the bracket where the boat ends at, where you can put your holes. Next step, after we have that marked, we go back in there, we'll take our drill, and we'll drill 2 more holes, like right there. We drill our holes, countersink them, and then we can through bolt the bracket. All right, next step, after you've done drilled your holes and countersink each one of your holes, so your bolts will stick through them and will stick flush. Come up where you marked everything. You set it right there on your marks. And me, I take and I drill. Get the first hole started. After you get that first one started, you come back. I always put the pole back through. Then we got a mark. Stay on your lines. And just repeat that process till you get all your holes drilled out. All right, after you have your bracket done and your holes drilled, what I like to do, take some 4200 and I'll take it and I'll put it around the holes to help seal it so no water splashes in. You don't get no water in through it, and it helps hold your bracket on as well. Oh. That'll help hold everything into place. After that, you get your bracket, so you can put your bracket back on. Line the holes up. And after you have all your holes lined up, right there, you come, and you want to through bolt it so it actually has enough. And where we mounted it at, you can through bolt it through your anchor locker. You just come in up under it. And put each washer and nylon nut on it. All right, after we have your bracket mounted, your bolts and nuts on it, now you want to tighten everything up. Because once you tighten it all up with your 4200, it should be there to stay for a while. Now that you have your trolling motor, bracket, everything on there, your trolling motor sets right on the bracket where the groove goes in. It sets right down. You take this piece right here. You have 2 holes on the side right there. It fits through. You just take, push that on right there, and that's what holds your trolling motor on. And then they come with a little pin right here. So they just sit that right on. All right, next, after we have the trolling motor mounted and everything, you need to mount your heading sensor. And where I mounted the heading sensor, I mounted it down here in the console. When you look at them, they have a little arrow right there on the front of it. You want the arrow to point towards the front of the boat. And it has a positive and negative hooked up on it, and it takes a 1 amp fuse. Luckily, we have a fuse panel here. We can hook it into the fuse panel. Use one of the ends not being used, hook up your positive and your negative. And don't forget, it takes a 1 amp fuse. You put your 1 amp fuse on it, and after you have everything ran, next is just to test everything, make sure it all works. Turn the boat on, make sure your circuit breaker for your trolling motor is on, then you come up here and where your plug is, or where you put your plug, wherever you put your plug for your trolling motor, you take it. There's your top. Take it, mount it. Then come. Make sure your trolling motor comes on. If you have the green light where it says power and it beeps, that means it's on. Come back over here to your heading sensor. You press. Oh, gotta turn electronics on this boat. Come over here after you turn your electronic switch on for that. It'll be be flashing blue fast, and then you come over to your trolling motor head. Where your trolling motor head is, right here it says pair. You hold that pair button until it beeps, and it beeps like 3 or 4 times. Then you come back and you can look at your heading sensor, and that's how you know it's paired. It flashes slower than it did before. Alright, now since everything's plugged in, you sync your heading sensor to your trolling motor. You go ahead, and since it's Trove and it's not, and it's a self-deploying, you got to press down the bracket. Go ahead and put it down. Make sure you clear everything on your boat. And when you want to turn your thing on, your controller for your trolling motor on, you come up, you hit the check mark right there, and then you just hit OK. Now it's ready to work. Go ahead and make sure it turns around. Make sure it turns everywhere which way it needs to. This trolling motor right here will do a full 360. Alright, make sure all that works. Then you hit your propeller mode right there. Go ahead and turn it on. Hit that, and then hit plus and minus to go up in speed. Hit that, make sure it works. Go ahead and turn it off. And then these have like anchor mode, which will hold you in a place if you like where you're fishing at, or if you want to beach somewhere and chill. It has the anchor mode for it. And then when you want to turn it off, you just hold the check and it says shutting down. And that will conclude an installment of the Minn Kota 112 72-inch shaft trolling motor. Alright, also we're going to show you the wiring. This boat didn't have no wiring for a trolling motor on it, so we had to mount and put everything in here ourselves. If you have to do that on a trolling motor, majority of the Minn Kotas takes a 60 amp circuit breaker. You want to mount it somewhere where it's accessible, so if it does trip, you can always come back, trip it back or something. We had to mount a 3-bank battery charger because this is a 36 volt system. Mounted that right there, so your plug, which is right here, gave a little bit of excess wire, so if they have to pull the plug out or pull the wire through, so if they want to charge it, they can. And then there are 3 battery setup. Mounted them right here. There's one up under the step, and then one on each side of the step with your wires ran through. And when you plug your trolling motor in, you should get some these 3 green dots right here from Cricket Green, and they'll come up telling you that each battery is charging. And that concludes everything on a Minn Kota trolling motor. Thank you for watching, and y'all have a good day.